to Babies in a Business, a podcast about business, growth, marketing strategy, staff clients, babies, and marriage. I'm Christina. This is Peter. We are married, but we're also the partners and leaders of CIPR Communications. Hello.
Hey. So today we're talking, and we're still, talking about building your marketing budget. But today we're going to dive a little bit into the can of worms, I'll call it, of marketing trends, because I call it a can of worms because I know within the WSI system, somewhere I saw some kind of like one pager where they showed the evolution of marketing tools over time, and it was like,
I have it. It's right. You can't see it if you're listening to it, but if you're watching the YouTube video where I'm pointing here, this big chart on my wall, but it's just like, it looks like, what did Brad from our team calls it? Like the subway map of Tokyo or.
Oh, I'm not even talking about that one. I'm talking about a different one where it shows basically like, I think it was like 10 years ago, there was like, 100 different marketing tools that existed, and now there's like 8,000. Right. So yes, while it's super important to kind of keep an eye on kind of the marketing trends and what's new and exciting and sort of what the industry has to offer to make life better and easier and all that kind of fun stuff. My caveat to this one is keep it simple, stupid. Start simple and build over time. And I think this is probably, to me, where having a very detailed marketing strategy and tactical plan really can save a business, because it's really easy to, there's this new thing. We should get this. And like we've had this conversation a few times on this podcast, but now all of a sudden you're paying, $3,000 to $5,000 in tools. And you don't even know what half of them do. You don't even know how to use half of them. You don't have like staff engaged in terms of like training on how to use them. Right. So you really got to be careful here.
And I just think like it's important to remember, like, if you understand current marketing trends and if you have your finger to the pulse, or your agency does on future marketing trends, it can definitely help you navigate that budgeting process. And it's important to kind of continue to be on top. But I really like to drill down with clients back to target audiences, and actually have a good example from my past life at the Canadian Association of Petroleum Producers. So one of the most successful marketing pieces or communications pieces that they put out was something called the Oil Sands Factbook. And it was this little kind of pocket guide to all things oil sands. And there was one on natural gas, and there was, et cetera, et cetera. It was like a whole series. And these little pocket books became great for all the member companies. So hundreds of thousands of members would have these little books in their cars and be able to pull them out. They were great little giveaways at trade show booths, and they became this really nice resource. So cue the era of the app. And, the great idea from the team was, well, we need to turn this Oil Sands Factbook into an app because everyone has their phones on them. And I think if you, and we as a team all agreed, okay, yeah, app, let's go. And I think that, okay, it's really trendy to put things on apps now. This was the like age of there's an app for that, when people started saying that, and it became prevalent in pop culture, and it became the next step. Like this little pocket guide was award winning. It was, had won awards, clients, member companies loved it. And so we started this huge process of turning this into an app. So one, expensive, right? Like new technology. We wanted the ability to update this app whenever the new stats came out. So this little pocket guide was being updated. I think it was like semi-annually, maybe quarterly if needed. And there was some pretty lofty goals set in terms of number of downloads. What was never considered, yes, apps were completely trendy from a marketing perspective was never considered was our target audience. So you think about the typical land person is probably a bit older. Probably, we actually ran into the like, how many people actually have smartphones? Then like uncovering another layer is like, not many people wanted this app on their personal phones, and many of the member companies' business phones actually had disabled the ability to download apps because, they don't want you downloading Tetris on your phone. Or so just this big blind spot in terms of a current trend that we all thought, and, the average age of our team was probably 30. I'm going to even just say, I'll leave it at there. Thought this was a great idea, but it was such an uphill battle to one, even get people to download it. But two, from a budget perspective, depleted our budgets to be able to do other things, and a really expensive lesson to be learned. So even though it was trendy, it wasn't a fit for the market. And it really did. I don't want to say it fell on its face, because there were downloads and whatever, but what tied a bow is like, we just reverted back to just doing the book. And I couldn't tell you if the app still exists or not, but I know the book does.
Yeah. And I like to kind of always, when I talk to clients about marketing and communications, talk about a crawl, walk, run approach. And so, I mean, if you're a company that's, new to marketing, just sort of getting your feet wet, probably the latest and greatest marketing tool in the world isn't necessarily where you're at as a company, right? So, I mean, there's a couple things to consider. It's like where you're at as a company in terms of marketing and communication sophistication, what internal resources you have to kind of capitalize on the latest trends, because all tools require training and education and somebody to put time and effort into it. These tools, as great as they all are, none of them work on their own magically. And then, like Christina said, more importantly though, is your target audience. It's like, if you're an oil and gas company, you probably have a more traditional target audience that probably doesn't necessarily use all these things. Whereas if you're obviously Uber, and you're kind of like, leading edge type company, and, an app makes sense for you, right? And so, there's just a lot of considerations. And so again, back to, if you have a very well thought out marketing strategy and tactical plan, maybe once a year or twice a year, you have a meeting where you look at tools and trends. But it gives you a framework from which to make a decision. And this is I would say, from a business leader's perspective, if you own a business, it's really great to have a process in place of some kind, to look at maybe trends in a structured way, because again, it's really easy for your marketing manager to say, oh, we need this, and oh, we need that, and all of a sudden, like I said, you have all these tools, and you're underutilizing all of them, and all of a sudden you're paying all this money, and so it's nice to have a system and a process where you can, so it's like the parking lot, right? It's like, okay, well, that sounds like a really interesting thing. Our meeting is in June, so let's, park it and look at it in June. Usually that'll take away all the passion, but it'll also give your employees the sense that, this is an idea that we'll consider, but at the time that we have structure to consider these ideas, right?
Right. So we talked about kind of what to avoid from a trends perspective. But then I think there's this really important other kind of side of the coin, which is what you cannot avoid. And so, I think back to, I don't even remember what this story was. It was years ago. I want to say it was a decade ago. I'm thinking about Melrose, the restaurant that's on 17th Avenue. They did a really amazing job at social media. And again, this is like over 10 years ago now, I want to say. And there was a restaurant down the street who had given really bad service. And again, I'm kind of embellishing this story. I don't really remember it, but maybe you do. It was like a Band-Aid in the food or something. And someone had tweeted it. So this was the days of like hyper engagement on Twitter. And that restaurant that made the blunder was not on social. Their neighbor was. And Melrose was able to capitalize on, wow, you had a terrible experience at our neighboring restaurant. we want to make it up to you. Come to our restaurant, you'll get a free appetizer. But just this ability to, these people had completely missed the boat because they didn't want to invest time, resources, money into social media. That's where their customers were hanging out. And it ended up like really bad for that one restaurant. I think they closed down, actually. I don't know. But Melrose was able to like capitalize on this and actually create a big thing. And so I think one of the biggest trends right now, obviously with the pandemic, is just having a website and a digital presence and the ability to service customers online. And that's one you can't ignore. And I think if you aren't set up from a marketing perspective to reach people and close sales and deliver your services from an online perspective, this last 12 months has been really hard for you.
Yeah, no, that's a good point. And I think, and I guess that's sort of I think the latest trend in marketing overall, the sort of at a very broad level is, well, there's two really big trends in my mind. One is, the power has shifted to the consumer and the buyer. And so to Christina's point, your website no longer can just be like a brochure. It needs to really be a lead generation and a conversion engine. And so that means basically that your content needs to be thought through in terms of your marketing funnel and how to get people through that marketing funnel, because they're going to do all of their research online way before they ever talk to one of your salespeople. So that's a major trend that you can't ignore. And so, how do you kind of position yourself, and how do you have a web presence, and how do you get in front of people so that they know you when they're doing their research? So it's huge. And then I'd say the overall other big trend is really the coming together or the blurring of the lines between marketing and communications. So public relations and digital marketing. Public relations used to be, you'd go out and you'd get your story pitched to a media reporter, and that media reporter would hopefully write a story about you, and off you went. Now there's bloggers, now there's podcasters, now there's, all kinds of different channels in terms of your where you can get your story told online. And a lot of those are digital channels. And so, it's sort of becoming kind of one and the same. And now there's things like paid advertorials. The whole media industry is changing to more of a paid model. So really those are two, I think, of the really big trends that really everybody should be paying attention to. And frankly, I tell people all the time, like, if you're not getting your business prepared for the digital age in terms of having a great online presence, being found online on Google and other search engines, and building your brand in terms of some of these other channels, you're probably going to have a hard time existing in 5 years from now, because I think that is just an accelerating trend. Unfortunately, a lot of it's like companies need to make a decision: either they're going in and they have to go all in, or they may not exist.
It's true. So I guess to summarize, I think it's like, pay attention to your target audience and where they're hanging out. So from the marketing trends that you are going to invest in this coming year, if your target audience is hanging out there, then you need to think about also hanging out there and investing in it. If they're not, then don't kind of be a fly to the light. Yeah.
And I in my sales process talk to a lot of companies that are like, oh, I need to be on Facebook because my competitor's on Facebook. And it's like, you sell like, and in some of these cases, it's like you're a business to business, heavy industrial company that sells,
widgets,
whatever, some kind of thing that goes into some kind of process somewhere. And it's like, maybe you want to be on Facebook, but you're not going to make any sales there. You probably want to be on LinkedIn, right? So again, to Christina's point, it's like, don't just because your competitors are there doesn't mean they're getting any value from you.
It's true. So there you have it. Pay attention to trends. Hang out where your people are hanging out.
Till next time.